Welcome back to another episode of the Please Do Tell podcast. I'm your homegirl, Ronnika, and I'm here with my co-host, Jeffrey.
Hey. Welcome back. Welcome back. Glad to be back. Episode 2. Let's come through.
Two of us together. Woo, what a time. So we want to do a quick recap of the last episode. Boy oh boy, we were even able to go Facebook Live, and if you haven't been able to check that out, please be sure to check that out because we were even able to give shout outs to a lot of the women that shaped us, which was a beautiful experience. I was able to tag some people and they were able to check it out. And I think one of the ones was your classmate talking about her sister and that special relationship. So I thought that was an extra special, um, I would say after dark for us when it comes to Please Do Tell. And what did you think about the last episode, Jeffrey? Because it was just, I feel like we were just getting in the groove of things and we're just moving up, 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 up.
Well, I really like you said, the after show. Shout out to everybody that was listening, want to be a part of. We would love to have you come back to tonight's. Am I right? Or am I
Yes.
speaking?
No,
All right.
no, you're
Okay.
right. You're right.
So tonight's after show, and so just it was crazy. You get an opportunity to talk about things about yourself, but if how it has impact. So whether it was someone that was my teacher, but who knew, it was somebody's granddaughter, or just like it was my classmate, it was her sister. So just that, just knowing that, like we said before on last week's episode, or the previous episode, I should say, is sometimes you just got to give them homage, just that little bump, but I'm looking forward to this week's episode, so let's do it.
All right. So we're going to be diving right into family fables and generational storytelling. Now, listen
Man.
here. For especially if you're a millennial like us or just anyone older than us, we really believe in, as my sister would say, one of her bucket lists was always to sit at the knee of an elder. And when we think about elders, even back then, was like the Cicely Tysons, and we have like great aunts and great uncles that are of the same age and same era, and just the stories that they.
Denzel Washington,
Okay,
yeah,
like
Sidney Poitier,
all right,
because
because.
actually Denzel is kind of thrown into that group now because he turned like 70 years old, and Sidney and Harry Belafonte, rest in peace. They're not here anymore. So yeah, they're not here anymore because we got a little bit older. That's just the way it is. So you
And
know,
we're here to say that we actually witnessed greatness like in the last era of their lives. And we even look at what Denzel is doing on Broadway right now. They said it's the highest grossed Broadway theater play of all time.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I had no clue that that was going on, but I did get a chance to see him. I can't remember what show I saw him on, and it said it was going to be on Broadway. But I looked at those tickets and I said, well, I know it's down the street, but I'm gonna have to work down the street, round the corner in another borough to get those tickets. Those, yeah, it's a pretty expensive show, but it's Denzel, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So, I may have to break down, I would say my birthday's coming up, but it did just pass, so I don't know. Yeah.
No, humor me. So I didn't even look up how much the tickets. What is the
I saw one for 350. I did. I saw a ticket for 350, and I was like, if I'm gonna go to a show, then let me, get, close enough. I
yeah.
want to see the sweat on
Yes,
Denzel's
I want to
brow.
see the
You know what
sweat.
I'm saying?
I
Yeah.
yeah, I want to see
I
the
want to
booger
say
in
it.
your nose. I
I
want to
want
see
to,
all of it.
my bad to talk over you, but I want
No.
to see him like from training day, but just a little bit older. You know what I'm saying? I want to see Othello. So, but yeah, yeah.
I want to see the breath coming from his mouth. I need to be
Right.
right there.
Yes, yes,
Right there. I
yes.
need to see the size. I need to be right there. Kind of like when we went to the Apollo. That is one experience I won't ever forget. Dancing on the stage.
Yeah, that was crazy. Just I know that. Look, I didn't even get a chance to get on the stage. You know what I'm saying? He was like, "Forget it. I'm getting on this stage."
Like, listen, I wore a long enough dress. I'm gonna drop it like it's hot and I'm gonna be on the stage.
Yeah, yeah, that was fun. That was fun. Or, yeah, just to see, being in Apollo, but I had a chance to see like I think it was one of their anniversary shows a few years
Mm.
ago, maybe like 6, 7 years ago. It was, I mean, we kind of grew up on it. Well, I would say it would be late at night. We were
Yes.
little, but
1, 2 o'clock
uh,
in the morning. It's
right, right, right,
showtime.
right. On
Yeah.
one of them loose channels with
Yeah.
the rabbit ears that could only get it.
Yeah.
But yep, yeah, it was a great experience.
So
Anyway, let's get back. Let's get back.
yes,
Let's get
okay,
back.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna share some family stories that were passed down through generations. And we're gonna call this segment, Let Me Tell Y'all What I Heard. So, one of the stories that we're gonna actually share, Jeffrey and I are gonna share, our family stories that have been passed down through generations, and it's quite a few of them, and I'm like, and here's where the tricky part comes in, because we are from that generation of what goes on in this house stays in this house. So
Hmm.
you're almost like, okay, what part of the story do I share and what don't I share?
Correct, correct.
Um,
When we were just talking about it, in the development meeting, we were just like, what we gonna share, what we're not gonna share. It's like, well, I don't know if I can share that part. So
yeah.
I understand.
Yeah. So I want to speak on it was something that I talked about maybe a few weeks ago with my director at work, about just making connections with people and how that's for a lot of people that's just really important, but I know especially for Black people it's extremely important because of our history. But so I can remember going out to California to visit my great aunt, one of
Hmm.
my paternal grandmother's sisters, and Jessie, and which I believe she'll be 97 this year. I think she'll be
Wow.
97 next
Wow.
month.
That's a
Still,
blessing.
absolute blessing. Still in her right mind. Still spicy. All of that. And I go out there and I'm asking her questions about my elders, and I said, "Yeah, oh my gosh, really, sir?" That's my dog Cooper.
Shout out to Cooper. Shout
Shout
out to
out to
Cooper.
Cooper.
Yeah.
Um, I was telling her, I said, "Yeah, I would hear all these stories about um your cousin Columbus Wilder, who was a pastor around here. I would hear all these stories about him.
Hold on for a second. When you say around here, what do you mean?
Okay, I'm sorry. Around here is Ben Harbor, Michigan is our hometown. So it's a very small town in Michigan, which if you look on the map, we're in the southwest corner. Southwest corner.
Okay, shout out to the
Yeah,
mitten.
yeah, yeah,
Shout
yeah.
out to
To
the
the mid, to the mid,
mitten.
southwest corner of Michigan, and and I would always hear about him coming over to the house. Even I've witnessed, and for a lot, I know growing up for myself, my mom didn't play that. You popping up over the house, you're gonna call before you come over.
Hmm.
Whereas our grandparents' house, it was because my grandfather was the justice of the peace. There was an open door policy all the time. And my
Hmm.
dad kind of adopted that. So a cousin came over, Columbus Wilder, which he was probably he was a generation ahead of my dad. And I was like, "Yeah, and Jesse, you all would come over with Columbus Wilder." And she said that, "Sir, bruh, no." He would come he would come over
Look, damn.
like, no. Um I said, "Oh yeah, your cousin would come over." She was like, "That ain't none of my cousin. That's your granddaddy people." But let me tell you what we would do. And she would say that it was something very special. So she was coming from California to travel into Michigan to visit some of her siblings. And she would say we would always go to visit the House of David, which is a huge attraction here. And they're trying to revitalize it even to this day. They've
Mm.
been able to acquire some grants in order to do that. And she said, "That ain't none of my people. That's your granddaddy people." So then I got, as I'm starting to dive into my family history, and I would always, growing up, hear my father say, even when I brought friends around, "Who your people? Who your people? Who your people?" Fast forward, so when she told me that that wasn't on my granny's side, it was on my granddad's side, I began to wonder, okay, so these people that I'm becoming friends with, no one has told us that we could potentially be related. So the older I get, I'm starting to go to funerals, and I don't want to say nosy. I'm observant enough to look at the guest book to see who signed in before me.
Historian.
I'm
Historian.
that thank you. That's what my Aunt Joyce said. She said,
Historian.
I am the historian of the family.
Correct.
So I'm looking and I said, well, why would this person be here? Come to find out, I am related to some of the people that I used to hang out with. I mean, we're not as close as we were back in the day,
Hmm.
but I'm starting to also realize that that was me kind of building my village and know that my village can sometimes shift, and how these stories that I hear from my elders confuse me. Because why didn't anyone tell me back in the day that I was related to these people that I was once playing with? I
Well, I
don't know
mean,
if
you
you've
got
ever
to,
done that, if
I
that's
mean,
ever happened to you.
but you got to think about it. I mean, you know, just like when people are just seeing each other being in a relationship, sometimes kids are around. You're not at a point where there's just one kid or no kid, like in our generation. You go generation before, people was having at minimum two. If you had two kids, it was
Yeah.
like, why you only had two, and was it just with this one? You know what I'm saying? So you had multiple kids, but you still wanted to protect because, as we know, the construct of the family was a different dynamic than what the construct of the family looks like today. So you didn't want to, but all of a sudden, that person stayed around a little longer than what was expected. And then all of a sudden, that was your uncle that you say 20 years ago. Because, those things happen in family. I could say aunt, common law marriage, that end up happening for a lot of people, along the way. So, yeah, that happens a lot. Or even afterwards, they leave and they're not a part of the family, you still give them that respect. That's one thing what we talk about with storytelling with people of color, specifically Black people. That storytelling is important because you piece people together. If not, that could have been your sibling's father, but now your sibling's not there, but we still need to know who the father is because he's still connected to the family. He was there for 5 years, of the family history over the last 20. So I think that's important, to share. However, I said all that.
Yeah.
Timing is everything. Timing is
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Kids don't need to know everything. We just need to know we respect each other and respect each other's personal space. So.
Okay, so I think, okay, with coming, I guess, full circle with that story is one of the last family gatherings that we had on my dad's side was we were all gathering over an extended family member's house, and there was a guy there, and he said, "Oh my gosh, I was talking to my dad. I was so in love with your daughter back in the day." And he
Hmm.
said, "I never knew that she was my cousin." I said, "Why is this why does this continue to happen? And because I keep hearing the same narrative
Mhm.
on this side of the family.
Well, I'm not here to dib and dab. So, but that's just let you know, very secretive. You know, I
Yeah.
had a lot of secret love. Yeah.
Love bug.
Look, I didn't want to hit that note, but that's how you build it. That's how you build. That's how you build that level.
But I always say there's nothing new under the sun because we do have those situations where you may have a family member that was very young and had a child and then gave it away to another family member to raise. But I'm just I think I'm still baffled with these stories that are passed down. It's like don't say anything, but it's like I want to know who my family is. And so I really appreciate my aunt even saying like, no, no, that's not my people. That's your granddaddy people. Because that way I'm able to even connect the dots and not in a nosy way or a judgmental way, but I want to know who my people are. And also I am a woman that is not married. So I need to know. So I don't marry a cousin.
Well, look, but you're a historian, so you better get on it. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. But it was good. I think that was a good segue when you said you had used one word where where we were talking about the story, and you was talking about passing it down from generation to generation. But one that like connects with me, where you talked about making the connection of not talking down or not being in a negative tone.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that was passed down from my generation, and it was kind of like, I want to say unheard, but loudly spoken. Crazy. But my grandmother and my grandfather from Mississippi, well, my grandfather's from Mississippi and my grandmother's from Louisiana, and they made that transition, the Great Migration up to the
Mm-hmm.
north. And but before that, they stopped in Iowa, and then from Iowa, and then, along the way of I-94. And but that was a part of their growth as adults to move from place to place because it showed that you made it or that you can make it.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the things that I saw with the next generation, specifically with their children, is to move from place to place, whether it was one who ended up being in the military and moving, another one that ended up moving to another state. Even my mother who ended up moving outside of the state, was actually still in the state, but actually moved and lived in Detroit. That was like a level of I made it.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have in their families of a level of a made it of I made it by graduating from high school.
Yeah.
It's just being
Yeah.
realistic. And
Yeah.
and some people my kid got a master's degree. But that's
Mm-hmm.
all that's what our family do. We create masters and pastors. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
everybody family is different. But from I would say from mine, that would be kind of like a little family lineage was like to move from where you're from to that next place, like you can do it here because it's here, but can you do it somewhere else and make it your own? And I seen that. I didn't really understand it, but once we started talking about it earlier, it hit me. Like that whole generation of my generation, like none of us live in the same place that we grew up in. Like
Yeah,
none of us. Like
yeah.
none of my grandmothers and grandfathers' grandchildren live, where they grew up. So I would say that that was a story that's passed, as in our level of success, I guess, defined for my family would be like moving from your nest,
Mm.
create your own nest. Yeah.
Mm. Mm. Guess I didn't think about it that way. Because, I mean, My friends know me as being like a bird watcher and just kind of observing um just their patterns and how the similarities even there is it's like you or our parents they built this nest and it's like I need you to fly go see what else is out there, which I don't know if the previous generations actually encouraged that, you know.
Mm.
I can remember one of the last things that um my dad had kind of talked about, and I guess with my friends, was that he was drafted in the Vietnam War during the Vietnam War. But one of the things that he said to Demita and I during our 10-year class reunion was one of the things that I wish I would have done more is travel. Like, be sure to travel, be sure to travel. And we kind of laughed about that because I can remember Demita backing out of the driveway and was like, your daddy all right? Like, he ain't never said no. I said, yeah, that was a little weird. Like he's telling me
Mm.
to go and live my life. Like before it was, no, you need to stay around here. I need to keep eyes on you. I need you to move back. And now hindsight is like looking back on that, that's when he knew he was terminally ill, but he was saying like, I need you to go out there and just live.
Yeah, do something, that's going to fulfill yourself.
Yeah.
That is, I was a big sports guy, played sports, but the bones got old. And I was like, let me work a little hard. So like my thing became travel. And so
Yeah.
like he said, like hey, what weekend we going where?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
figure it out. Even if it's during the week. I'm pretty sure I got some days that I didn't work on the weekend to make sure I can cover during the week.
Yeah.
Because, you only get that one life,
Yeah.
So I feel
Yeah.
him on that.
Yeah.
I understand from that perspective.
Yeah. So we want to dive into, we our true or false, our family edition of true or false. And this is where we bring a story to each other. It's either true or false. It could be wild, too wild to be true, but we have to figure out if each story is true or false. So I feel like last week I went first. So Jeffrey, are you ready to go first this week?
Sí, se puede. I know a few. I know.
And I'm about to be German. Bisschen Deutsch, bisschen Deutsch.
Right, right, right. Come on now.
Okay, okay,
Um, well, I have a story.
okay. Bring it
So,
on. I need to know if it's true or false. I need to figure out if it's true or false.
so I'm gonna give a little, context first.
True.
A little context.
Okay, okay, okay.
The storyline would be 1970. How about that? So it could be anything. But
Okay.
no, it's 1970, and my grandmother, who I just mentioned a little bit earlier, she had six kids. And she had six kids, but she had like an 11-year-old, and then she started having like a bunch of kids, like in a bunch. So she had five like younger kids, but they didn't got a little bit older. And then they got into a little bit of adolescence. Adolescence mean, them girls and them boys, they hot in the pants, so it's one of those things that's going on.
Okay.
So I gave the context of 1970. That's why I use hot in the pants. So,
Okay.
um, my uncle, who was like the youngest boy, so my grandmother had three boys, three girls. He was the youngest of the boys, so he was like, nature was calling, so he just had to go see this girl. So my grandmother was like, "Nope, you better not. Like, don't ask me no more. Like, chill out." And he was like, "No, I just got to go see it." So the legend says, so it's true or false. The legend says that there was a cup that was sitting next to my grandmother that my uncle, who was around the corner and sitting on the couch, somehow, some way, she took this cup and threw that mug like she was pitching for the Orioles in 1970 around the corner and hit his ass in the back of his head, cut him, where he had to go get stitches. Is that true or false?
False.
How about that?
False.
That story is true.
No,
Yes,
oh,
it
no,
did
no, no,
happen.
no,
Yes, he
no.
did. Yeah.
The dates weren't adding up for me.
Well, I don't know if it was like in 1970. I know look, he graduated in the 70s. But I know it was before he graduated. But I was given the context of 1970. Yeah, he actually had to go
What?
to he actually had to go to the emergency room and get stitches. Yeah. And they live far in the country, so that was a little ride out there to Mercy Memorial at the time.
Mercy Marl.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Sure did. Sure did. The moral to the story is uh don't test your mama. Uh,
Ba-dum-bum.
yeah.
That was a good. Because you threw me off with a little with the 1970 when you said 11-year-old. I was like, okay, because we grew up doing mental math. So that would put us at 1959. And I said, wait a minute, they would have to be a little bit older because I believe your oldest uncle is older than my mom. So yeah, I was trying to.
Yeah, see, you was overthinking and
I
overthinking it. That's
was.
why I said youngest uncle. See, context clues. Context clues.
Do 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 do.
Hmm.
Okay.
So what you got?
All right. So what
Come
I
on.
have
I'm
is
ready. I'm
it's
ready.
wild. It's wild.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is wild. So once upon a time, that's how I like to start my stories. Once upon a time, there was a gentleman. He was living in the former the former housing complex called Cabrini Green in Chicago, Illinois. He was quite a bad boy, and he had migrated from the South to the Midwest. And by this time, he had already had a daughter, but he still wanted to be able to provide for her, but he didn't believe in working all the time. So he decides to go over to this establishment, excuse me, um, take things that don't belong to him. So, he basically robbed this place. But he knew that after robbing this place, that he would potentially be caught and go to jail. So he decides to go across the street to his favorite diner. So mind you, this is all in his neighborhood. He decides to go over across the street to his favorite diner, order a cheeseburger with bacon and all the fixings, and then proceeds to sit on the counter, eats the burger, and waits for the police to come and arrest him because he says, I did that shit. And but I'm going to enjoy this burger because I know I'm not going to have one like it for a very long time. So he asked the police officer, can he finish his burger before being arrested? So he finishes his burger, reaches out his wrist, and says, I think I'm ready now. And the next time that his family hears from him, or his daughter and son hear from him, is years later. Is the story true or false?
It got so deep. I went, like you said, you did the mental math. I started doing the historical event, deductive logic. When you mention it, excluding the Chicago part, um, I really thought it was the um, coward from South Carolina when you said about the burger. So, um, I was happy to hear the beginning, but then it made my emotions shift hard. I ain't even gonna lie. I was like, somebody was actually, if you go back and look, you can see my eyes kind of zone out. You know, like where are we going with this?
Uh-huh.
But when you wrapped around that second part, well, the last part, when he hadn't heard back from his family, it kind of gave when he reached back out to his family after a very long time, it kind of humanized it.
Mm.
Because he was kind of humanized. He had did some wrong shit and he came in there and said, "Hey, let me finish this." It sounds unbelievable that the police, as a black man, because I would assume then that they allowed him on the south side of Chicago to eat. Anyway, out of all of that, I'm gonna say that the story is true.
Damn you, it is a true story.
Boom! 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 Boom!
Can you imagine being a little girl answering the phone? And, my parents trained me to answer that phone and say, when someone says, "Who am I speaking to?" I don't know. Who is this? Like, I don't say who I am if you're calling my house.
And you are?
I don't know. And no, my mom was like, "We got to work on this one." I don't know. Who is this? This is your granddaddy
Wow.
with his nickname. And I
Wow.
thought, confused because as I'm counting, I already have four. Like, I'm thinking each parent has two parents. So now I've ran out of where we at.
Right.
So now we got to explain
Right.
who this extra man is calling the
Right.
house.
Who this is, Luca?
Yeah. And yeah, but we got that story on his deathbed. He shared a lot of stories on his deathbed. But that was the one that stuck with me because I said, "Oh my gosh, how did my mom come from a gangster?" Just how? How did this sweet lady come from a gangster?
Look,
Her
yes,
village.
it is. We don't know. We never know what our
We'll
profession
never know.
or our people are going to be.
Yeah,
As
yeah.
my mom would always say, you you don't choose your family. You inherit.
Mm, mm.
So it
That's
is
a
what it
word.
is.
That's a
It is what
word.
it is. You
That's a
inherit.
word.
You inherit them whether you want it or not.
Whether you want them or not.
Yeah, yeah. But an inheritance means you got to deal with it.
Yeah, yeah. Mm. So if I would have switched that up a little bit, it would have been totally false for you. So now I know. I know what to do with you.
Thank you.
Because then
Thank you.
I'm such a truth teller.
I
So
was 2 for 2. Got you and hit it. Come on now. I
yeah,
must got my
see.
pen today.
Anyways, moving on to the foolishness files. All
True.
right, so I need you to tell me one over the top or hilarious thing one of our elders or family members used to say or believe. One more time. One over the top or hilarious thing an elder or family member used to say or believe.
I really have to use this one. Well, my family has this word that we use, and I think we were supposed to use this for the next segment, if I'm not mistaken. But this is the more I think about it, like the more I wanted to talk about it.
Yeah.
But we have this word called car fare, and it's crazy because I really had to look it up, because if I was born in the 80s,
Hmm.
so in the 80s and 90s, we didn't really have car fare. I live in a small part of Michigan. Dollar ride, that's not car fare. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
so from
Yeah.
that standpoint, never understood what car fare is. So when we use it in the context of car fare, it would be defined as that's your fault. And I'll say it again, as in I'll use it as an example. as in I crossed the street.
Mm.
However, I got hit by a car. Well, that's your car fare that you got hit by a car. So that's your fault. And it's something that has lived on for generations, as in my grandmother came, I think it was something that was from my grandmother or my great grandmother, but they had car fare from, because they were from New Orleans.
Yeah.
So car fare made sense. So they somehow, some way, as in the dialect of African traditions or from slavery, as in, you mix up words so it can make sense, so, making it pass and things of that nature. So, car fare is our word. I have never met anyone else, any other family, and I've met tons of families that use the word car fare. However, all of my friends that know me, I use car fare religiously because yeah, that's your fault, not
Yeah.
mine. That's your
Yeah.
car fare, so that would be over the top, something that we use a lot. I mean, I could always use like I said the S word earlier, but we do use that a lot too as a
Yeah.
family. But let's just keep it this way.
Okay.
Car fare it is.
Car fare.
Car fare. That's your car fare.
That's
So
your car fare.
I'm gonna just tell y'all, as the listeners, if you hear me say car fare, you know exactly what I mean. If not, I'll come back and explain it again. But that's your car fare if you
That's
don't.
your that's your car fare.
know.
So I'm gonna hit you with one saying that still comes up time after time after time again. Miles's maintenance. Um my dad was really big on that's even to this day I don't and I'm really happy to see that our local school system is going to reinstate driver's ed because I think I was the second to last class to be a part of driver's ed, and our driver's ed was only $30.
Yeah, that's important. That's
Yeah,
important.
yeah. I mean, because we've worked with kids, we've seen kids out here driving illegally and all of that. So I was really excited to see that. But Miles is maintenance because as soon as we turn 16, my dad said, I feel like I've worked all my life to make sure that you all would have a vehicle because you all like to be real active. You like to be in all the groups, all the clubs, all the band practices, all the sports. And I'm not finna be driving your ass back and forth to these practices. So I need you to pass this driver's ed class and drive yourself from point A to point B. And on top of that, I need you to just not pile up the car with your friends.
That was a requirement.
That was a requirement that
That was
you have responsible individuals in the car with you, but you will drive yourself to and fro to these different events and practices.
yeah. It was.
So go
Uh,
ahead.
I
No,
didn't
go
mean to.
ahead.
You was like one of the first people, because even though in our difference of age, but you were like one of the first people. I'm older, and you had a car. I was like, let me get up in that car. You was like, and I was like, I can tell she got them good parents.
I
But
was
you
the
already
one.
know, like them parents be like they already done got you a car. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, shit,
Yes.
I ain't even get no car. So, I was blessed. I was blessed that my mama would would let me drive to school, then come to the school and then take the car to work. I don't know. It was crazy, but no, we ain't have all that extra. Another car, another insurance? Oh, hell no.
That's the whole thing. So with me being the youngest, like the other two experienced totally different. Whereas with mine, it was everybody else, like my sister and my mom and my dad, were all on their own insurance. My car was on a separate insurance. So
Mm,
that one weekend when my car is down and my dad was like, hey, use one of my cars. Okay, I'm out joyriding with my friends.
mm-mm.
Into a car accident, a drunk driver hits me, and police shows up and all of that. But no ticket is clearly issued to me because I'm not in the wrong. Well, even though I
And
wasn't wrong,
thankfully,
but I'm
you
not
weren't
wrong.
hurt and your people.
Thankfully, everybody was fine. But of course, it got back to the insurance company. Like, oh, you didn't report this underage driver. Because my dad was like, listen, I didn't play it off with these other two. You just need to drive for everybody else. Drive responsibly.
Right,
So
right.
here we go. I'm driving. Then it's like 2 weeks before my 18th birthday, and this accident happens. And he said, well, so you done canceled all of us out. Your car is separate. It's got its own separate insurance. But me, your mom, and your sisters canceled out, so we going to shop around. But you gonna have to ride that bus. Not
Back to
when
the
I got a
yellow.
car in the driveway. What you mean? He said, until I figure out how we gonna be insured again, ain't nobody driving.
Look, as they call it over here, in New York, you back to the cheese bus.
Back to the cheese bus.
Yeah, back to the cheese bus.
So I was on there for about 2 weeks, but Miles is maintenance because my grandmother, my mom's mom, could not wait until I was able to drive because I was able to run her errands that, hey, can you go get me some mustard greens from, I don't have enough in my garden. Can you go get me some from Save a Lot? Can you go get me some garlic from this place? So within 6 months, 6 months, just me in, now you all have to think Ben Harbor is literally the radius of 4 miles. That's it. That's Ben Harbor. Which
But I just want to interject. Harlem is 3.9 square miles. So don't front Benton Harbor. It is just a little bit bigger than Harlem. Just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there.
you throw it out there and I'm gonna bring it back because I was also traveling to South Bend, Indiana, which is about 30 to 40 minutes from us. So about,
Hmm.
40 miles. I put 10,000 miles on my car in 6 months.
Wow.
I can clearly remember my dad saying, where the F have you been going?
Wow.
Who, like, I haven't been giving you that much gas money. You aren't working. You are, what? How is that even possible? Like the other two didn't even do this, but you, he said, so now you running errands for your grandma, for her twin, for your mama, not even for me.
Hmm.
But I was racking up on the friends that didn't have a car, that had jobs, and now they're giving me gas money to take them back and forth to work and joyride. So that was also my hustle. But it was Miles racking up on this car that he bought for me when he said, you're going to look up and it's going to be high mileage and it's going to be costly for repairs. So just remember that the high miles equates to miles is maintenance. And to this day, when I look at my own car that I just spent money on this past week, that I'm in my feelings about, but thank God that I was able to pay for it. But miles is maintenance.
What you had to get this week?
I don't even want to talk about it.
All right, all right. Next thing then. No, but I do want to go. I do want to go back over there. I was gracious enough to have an opportunity to meet your father.
Mhm.
Um, um, I got that miles equal maintenance from him. I'm not even gonna lie, because he told me, like he was like, "Hey, you're a man." I had to get the raspy voice. Dad, what are you
Yeah.
doing? One of those. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's like miles equals maintenance, and just learning that over time. My mama used to be like, "Hey, we don't let no car sit in no yard. Well, that means you got to make the money. Of course,
Hmm.
the woman would tell you to make the money.
Yeah.
And he would
Yeah.
say, your father, listening to him, he'd be like, hey, it's maintenance. That means you got to put in the damn labor and the work.
Hmm.
So, yep. Yep. I'm with it.
There, so my sister and I, and my mom were at a funeral for my cousin this past weekend, and my uncle was there, my mom's youngest brother. And he walks up to my sister and he was kind of talking about how he hadn't seen her in a while and talking about gray hair and all of that. And he said to her, he was like, one of the things that your dad said to me back in the day was, because my uncle was a street dude once upon a time. And he said, so you blowing through this money, man. It sound like you need to find you another profession. And she said the way that you can mock people, Uncle Maine, is just mind blowing to me. But he said your dad used to just drop like certain stuff on us, like, oh, mm, yeah, that ain't smart, right? Yeah, you probably need to
It,
figure out something else to do.
it's called a zinger of truth. You don't really have
Yeah.
to get into the semantics. You ain't even really have to fluff it out.
Yeah.
Hey, um, so you gonna walk around with two left shoes and walk off, like that's
That's
just
what he
yeah.
used to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically you
Yeah.
walking in a circle, like you're making
Yeah.
sense. So, but that's as we talk about storytelling. That I learned that from a grandmother, a great
Mhm.
grandmother. Hearing those old sayings.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that really is what storytelling is. Giving an opportunity to hear those elders. And I know that. A lot of times we talk about our young people, now and how they don't get the opportunity, but they hear us. And
Yeah.
I know it because, working with young people, I remember working at the Boys and Girls Club, and you hear some of those young people, teenagers repeating low key off to the side what you say. Now you want to be upset, but you like, what? This mug is actually repeating what I say.
Yes.
So, I mean, that just lets you know that, again, impact. You'll hear me say it a lot, and that's the impact of storytelling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're gonna just dive right into our rapid fire round, which is generational gems. And we have so many things to choose from. We have our favorite family dish or recipe, a saying from an elder you still use, something you thought was true as a kid but now know that it wasn't, or your favorite family nickname and how it came to be.
Are you, now I just want a little bit of clarity. Are
Mhm.
we saying each or one or how you want to do
You
this?
can do it however you, so I feel like you can hit on each point, or if you want to just use two or three or all of them, it's up to you.
Well, what I do want to do is give an opportunity for our listeners when they get a chance that if they can chime in and tell us out of the five that you just mentioned,
Mhm.
like theirs, and give us some kind of feedback. That way that we can kind of, interact and, with our listeners. Because I know I don't want to just usurp, but I know I can talk about this forever.
Yeah. I almost feel
You know
like
what I'm saying?
we want to insert this in our after show too, that we want
Okay,
to be able to
absolutely.
incorporate this in our in our after show.
Absolutely.
Uh,
What we can do is we can put it in the when we put our posts to Facebook Live, what we
yeah,
can do is um post it with a little bit of a pre of come with, to talk about.
yeah, for sure.
Yep. But anyway,
Yes.
that's another look. We always on moving, but still talking. But all
Yes,
right, all
yes,
right, all
yes,
right,
yes,
all right.
yes, yes.
So let's do a family dish or recipe. All right, so family dish, I'll go with that. My grandma used to make this gumbo. Oh my God. Just a gumbo with rice and okra and chicken and New Orleans sausage and
Mm.
Um, uh, it was so much stuff in it, and then the roux that was with it. And you see, I'm just looking off in the distance because, my grandmother, she hadn't made it. This is 2025, and I ain't taste, that gumbo in 20 years or so.
Uh,
But it was amazing. Oh, and crab and shrimp, and you got to have a real gumbo.
yeah.
It was a family recipe, but it really didn't get passed
I
down.
was gonna ask you, does
Yeah.
anyone have
Nah,
it?
never really got passed down. My grandmother would just,
Oh
I remember as a kid because my grandmother, excuse me, my mother worked and my grandmother raised me as in I came home and I lived with my grandmother. And no matter what day I came home from school, there was always something on the stove that smelled like it, it was always a meal. So there's things that I can now post, I would say 2020, because COVID is where I really dove in
no.
of
Hmm.
kind of like, cooking. But nothing really like sticks out like a family recipe like that. I mean, my aunt really, my aunt can cook. My aunt can really, really,
Wait,
really
which aunt?
my
Or
aunt
both of
Chris.
them?
Yeah, my
Okay.
aunt Chris can really cook.
Okay. Yes.
Like she's really good in the kitchen. But it's not really a recipe. Like we don't really have a family recipe, which is
Mm-hmm.
weird.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they know me as the person at barbecue, which is weird
I
because
was gonna say this, like, sir, please talk
yeah, I
about.
don't, I stumbled up on that barbecuing thing. It's just like as I got older, again, no sports, so you got to like figure it out as a man or as a male. I don't want to just like, pigeonhole people. But like what is going to be my hobbies and what I want to do. And I like to control that aspect. So if you on the grill, everybody love the grill, man.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's cool. It's cool. It's cool. But so I guess maybe the family recipe may come, I guess, with my generation.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have anything like a family dish or recipe per se. But my grandma could make some gumbo. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And shout out for my pork eaters because I do like little chitterlings, but that's another story for another day. But
Okay.
yeah.
That's a good one. Um, let's see. For my mom's side, so when my mom was pregnant with my sister, she said that my granny, which is my dad's mom, made carrot cake. So I was able to, my mom was able to find the recipe in my grandmother's handwriting
Oh wow.
of her carrot cake. And I remember I posted it on her birthday because I was her birthday gift many moons ago. I was born the day after my granny.
Oh wow.
And so I try to do like something for either I post something either on her birthday or on the anniversary of her death date. And one of my cousins was like, "Oh my God, like you have the carrot cake recipe." I said, "Yeah, she wrote it down for my mom." So I was able to
But they
piece
were
it.
looking for it.
Yeah, they were looking for it, like, oh my
Mhm.
God, like somebody has it. And then my cousins, my same aunt Jessie, her granddaughter, who's out in California, she said, "Oh my God, my grandmother and your grandmother have the same handwriting."
Wow.
So that was just beautiful to even make that connection there. But there's one other connection is my maternal grandmother's caramel cake. And I can remember before I even moved out to North Carolina for the first time, I was in her kitchen with her. She's sitting down and she's directing me on how to make caramel from scratch and the cake and all of this. And I can remember going to the airport and it's a three-layer cake, and I'm carrying it in her little cake box. And this was before they were, well, no, this wasn't before TSA. No, this is definitely after 9/11. And I'm walking through the airport with this big old cake, and they're like, I said, I am protecting this with my life. I have to take it to my brother. Like, that's who I'm staying with. He is requesting it. He knows that every time he sees our grandmother that she's gonna have a caramel cake for him. So that was my gift to him, was to sit in that kitchen with our grandmother who endlessly talk crap.
Mhm.
That was her thing. But she wanted to make sure that her oldest, she believed, oldest grandson was, if you know what I mean, oldest grandson was going to get this caramel cake made, her recipe made by his baby sister, flying from Michigan or Chicago to North Carolina with this cake. Now, do I remember how to make this caramel cake? I don't. I probably, I think I,
Mhm.
as many times as I've moved, I've written it down somewhere, but I don't know. But the beautiful thing is that my youngest aunt, my grandmother's youngest daughter, has all of these recipes that she's able to replica just at the drop of a hat. So I can
Wow.
say that I'm thankful for that because I've kind of lived like, oh, okay, well, I mean, I know that my aunt knows all the recipes. I know that my mom has some, and I know that my other aunt has some, but when we think about passing them down, I don't know. Like I can probably I feel like at the end of the day I probably started to, especially with really looking at what we use, the herbs and the spices that we use to in our foods, is trying to find a healthier way of making the dishes that we grew up on. So I think that's where
Do we? No,
don't
I'm
start,
joking.
don't start, don't start, don't
I
start.
mean, because everything in moderation and maybe just a little pullback, but I'm like, I don't have to. You heard me mention about chillings
I
earlier.
know the park.
A couple times a year is not going to, but when it was your Sunday meal
It was
52
every
times a
Sunday.
year.
It was every Sunday.
You can't have it 52 times a
I know.
year.
Thank
You
you,
can't.
doctor. Thank you, doctor.
No, no.
She was calling it comfort food. She was like, "So how often do we have this comfort Southern food?" I said, "Every Sunday, girl." She said, "Mm-mm, no,
Mm-mm.
no. Just like red meat. You need to only have it once or twice a month, and you talking about you having it 6 days a week? No, ma'am. No,
Red meat only twice
no,
a
no, no.
month?
Okay, okay, okay.
Oh, I was gonna say, shoot.
I'm not doing this with you. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
Well,
So,
I did do
but
the elder. I know we was gonna do the elders. We still use. I did the car fare, but I was really kind of like stuck when he was like something. Oh, you thought that was true as a kid. Um, well, I guess I'm gonna give a very naive story, as in, I was young. I would say probably all the way up to like 12, 13, 14 years old. I just felt that my grandmother was the most powerful MFer that I had ever seen in this whole world. Just call it what it was, whether it was at
yeah,
church,
yeah,
look, whether it was at church or in other projects. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't
yeah.
understand why the thugs knew her, and I was young, and I
Right,
didn't know the
yeah.
thugs. You know what I'm saying? So, which I later understood that it wasn't that she was the baddest MFer ever, but it was a level of respect.
Yep.
She had developed a level of respect in the community,
Yeah.
and that's something that you can't buy,
Mhm.
and that takes
No.
time, and it takes generations. So that would be one thing that I know that was untrue. That was I felt was true, that was untrue, but it was a learning lesson.
I love that you talk about respect because my sister even brought this up not too long ago. One of my cousins has her youngest child. It's by a guy that we actually grew up with, and to other people he would be identified as a thug, which I don't think so because he's always been respectful to me, even like growing up. But whenever he sees my mom, he melts. Like he could be in front of his guys and he's like, "Oh my God, there goes Miss Millie." Like there's a sense of respect there. And even when I look at young people now, is that when both of us have worked with young people, and when I see them just in passing, it's like, "Oh my God, that's Mr. Booker," or "That's Miss RJ," and there's a sense of respect there of, I know we're not too far off in age, but I know this person was a part of guiding me in some type of way, and I respect them as a person. So I think even with ending this episode, is just the takeaway for me is just how can I continue to be that example? Like I'm still me. Like I'm still gonna drop a F bomb. I'm still gonna cuss. I'm still gonna, I know that I'm a work in progress, but how are we able to pass it on to the next generation that there's still a level of respect there while also owning who you are?
Absolutely. I mean, but that's, a lot of that is kind of taught along the way. But and it's crazy. It's taught in trial and error.
Mm,
And a lot of our young people, um, the generation that taught me in trial and error. They scolded me. They put me in my place.
yeah,
We know that that's not allowed. Um, I want to say it's not allowed, but I don't think it's I don't think it's fair for you to scold and put somebody in their place because the generations have shifted.
yeah,
But what you can do is educate and inform. And if you educate and inform, in my experience of working with young people, they're receptive. And they may not be receptive today, because I damn sure believe we were not receptive, even with the scolding, you know.
yeah.
But they'll get it over time, and if you allow them that opportunity, then it'll be better,
Mm.
versus being so judgmental. But I ain't want to like sound it out, like I ain't want to dumb that down. But that just kind of like makes me upset because there is a change and a difference of each generation because. The generation that's before us, they didn't like what their parents did. So
Yeah.
they have to forget,
Yeah.
they've forgotten
Yeah.
that part.
Yeah.
Just like at times we can forget that part that we didn't like what our parents said when it
Hmm.
comes to the young people that's looking up to us.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's good. So we
That's all
want
I got. No, I'm joking.
so we want to be sure that
Or should I say, lock the doors? No, no, no. Close the doors. Close the door. Flag on the play. Flag on the play.
I want to bring out my tambourine, but I know that it's gonna ignite Cooper, so I'm not even
Oh yeah, the friend.
not even gonna do it.
My friend Coop.
Coop with
Coop
the
with the scoop. Coop with the scoop. Come on now.
scoop. But you all, we want to be able that since we're telling these stories, we want to hear from you as well. So we want you to really, these family stories, these family sayings, engage with us. I know we're about to go into the after show, and that's another opportunity for you to engage with us live. But of course, you want to be able to connect with us on social media. I am Ronnika.Williams on Instagram and Ronika Williams on Facebook. And you can find Jeffrey where?
I am Jeffrey Booker. No, I'm Jeffrey Booker. You can find me at Instagram at Mr. Fantastic, MR Fantastic World. I'm sorry. Let me say it again. At Mr. Fantastic World. At MR Fantastic World.
Oh boy. And once again, I want to tell you all that his stories are all the way live.
And we continue. Thank you for reminding me about this PSA. No target. Sorry, cuz you see the stock dropping. No, no, you cannot promise things and take them back. That's not how we do it. All right, that's it. That's all. That's it. Before I
Okay,
get canceled. Before I get canceled.
there's no Target in Ben Harbor anymore. Let's just put that out there. So I
There's
want
no Target in East Harlem anymore.
okay,
They moved them. Come
okay,
on now. No, we're done.
okay. So there's no is I'm blocking him on my on my job there's no Target in Ben Harbor, but I was in Mishawaka, South Bend, Indiana on Tuesday. Was that Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday. And I really wanted to go to Target and I did not go. So I am also a part of this movement. I have not shopped at Target since the protest started.
Tomorrow is day 40. I'll remind
Okay, so it's
everybody
day 40.
tomorrow is day 40, and you're gonna hear it every day. I'm going 100 because I like to go a little extra.
We know. He's been like this since the very beginning. Safe Tukey. Um
Well, now,
So you all, we're also Please Do Tell podcast on all social media, on YouTube as well. Why is my sister calling me at 10:49 p.m. in the evening? Yeah.
like when
All
you
right.
going live? When you going live?
All right, y'all. So we will see you on the next episode of the Please Do Tell podcast. I'm your homegirl, Ronika, and I am joined with my co-host.
Jeffrey Booker, I am
All right,
here.
y'all. We'll see you next time. Hello.